Hello and welcome to, welcome to another fully live episode of Hacking with Friends. My name is Cody Kinsey. I am a security researcher at Varonis, and today we have our late but just in time guest Michael here to go through the hacking news of the week. Thank you to everybody who's joining us. We're a little bit late because we're just getting in from vacation, getting set up again, and also we got delayed in Seattle by an extra day because of crazy weather.
Yeah,
so
fun winter storms.
Yeah, so if you were also in Seattle, congratulations on surviving. I hear there were 60 accidents in like a 12-hour period just from the rain and the snow. So we made it out. And I have been spending the week putting the Flipper through its paces and learning a little bit about what it can and can't do. I've been posting some alluring looking videos on Twitter that have gotten a lot of attention, mostly because I've been super vague and I haven't really explained like what's going on. But honestly, it took me a while to kind of figure out what this thing is good at and what it's not good at. And it's been interesting kind of seeing what's happened. So I'm going to do a little report on that. And then also we're going to go through the news of the week. So Michael, thank you for being here.
Yeah, of
course. We've got a lot of news to cover this week, so we can get straight into it.
Yeah, I was going to say I have a short little story to start us off with.
Oh, okay, sure. I mean, I was also going to shout out the Seattle Makerspace.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
fine. We can do
so
that.
Michael and I went over to AltSpace in Seattle, Washington, and it was really, really awesome. So if you're in Seattle and you're looking for a cool place to create things or find other people that are doing interesting things, frankly, everybody there was super friendly. We got to meet some people who were doing.
Are you sure it's AltSpace?
Isn't that where we went?
Looks
like it.
Pretty sure that it was Make Seattle.
Okay, well then you get their website up. This is what you sent me. But yeah, we went to a great makerspace, which I'm sure Michael will have the URL up for shortly.
Yeah.
But all right, well, Michael's finding that. I can also go over a little bit about what we learned and some of the videos and pictures I posted. So this was, I tapped the Orca card, which is Seattle's public transit card, and I got all this information. But what does that actually do for me? Well, these cards have enough encryption that this actually was not able to be emulated or copied in any way, although I was able to read the data. So if I wanted to take this data and then use it with something more advanced in order to try to like crack it or read it or something, then there's the possibility of doing so, but not on the Flipper itself. So while I was able to read this data, I couldn't actually emulate it. And when I tried to emulate just the user ID of the card or like the card's unique identification number, I couldn't even get the reader to react. So while I could read this, I couldn't do anything with it. So although this got a big reaction, it really, unfortunately, at the moment, isn't super useful just on the device. For this one, I was walking around and I realized that I could use the detect reader function to actually boop the reader. And that would give me a set of extracted nonces. Michael, what is a nonce? Do you remember?
I don't remember the abbreviation, but a number only used once.
Yeah, essentially, yeah. So it is a number that is only used one time in encryption, and it's used to explore. It's used to provide a certain level of secrecy. Now, what's funny is this is also apparently a word for something else in the United Kingdom, and I did not know this. So this video has been like a UK person detector, because everybody from the UK is like, a pair of what? But yeah, so apparently that means something different. But in cryptography, which is what we're talking about, this has the specific meaning, and it means that the reader is giving up a key, which is part of what is used to read sectors on the key card. So can I get into the door after reading this? No, but I am one step closer, because it means I'm able to actually get a piece of information that makes it easier for me to copy the keys. Now, does this mean that I can copy a key card? No, I thought it did. But after trying this on multiple different places and even getting the cooperation of one of these hotels to lock the door and then have me emulate the key card I was able to read, I still wasn't able to get it to properly open the door. So I even went like between like a Comfort Inn and then a kind of higher end hotel in Seattle. I wasn't able to successfully clone any key cards, even if I did get access to the reader to extract these nonces. So in this case, the my key vulnerability here that it's exploiting is really interesting. It's called the MF key 32v2. So if you want to check it out, it is a way under some circumstances that makes it easier or faster for you to attempt to brute force the data on a card and actually clone it. But yeah, so I did a little bit of MyFair 1K hacking on this trip. Again, I wasn't able to actually clone or emulate any of these cards to the point that it would open anything. Now, there are some things that might have happened here. For example, one of the people said that the hotel doors lock out cards after 6 hours if they've been lost or if the person's checked out. So it might be that the one that I found was already locked out and never would have worked anyway. but it seems as though the flipper is not exactly able to just like read a reader and then immediately copy a card. So if that's your expectation with the product, then unfortunately, I haven't been able to replicate that in my test. So I'm going to reach out and see if I'm maybe missing something. But while it was fun to collect all these and be able to see the time on reading some of these sectors get shorter, I wasn't able to actually clone even like kind of cheap hotel room cards. So if you've had a different experience, please let me know. But yeah, so while this video got a lot of attention, I think the original one, let's see. Yeah, 9,000 views.
Okay.
I still wasn't able to actually get into this, even though I did have a key to the hotel and I was scanning it and trying to emulate it. So yeah, really interesting time there. This is something that did work though. So I was able to open the charging port on a Tesla. Now this just closes back in a couple seconds, so it's not something that's
Does
like
it close back automatically?
Oh yeah, it automatically closes back.
Okay.
So that's something that is, they're not going to come back and be like, oh, my charging port's open, because it automatically closes if nothing's inserted, just to keep stuff out. So this is possible by doing sub-gigahertz radio, which you can actually download these pre-saved remote control frequencies and codes on GitHub. So while I was on my phone, was able to download this and then use the mobile app they created to send this file over to the flipper and play it and immediately start opening Tesla hatches. I was also able to record the doorbell at the hotel and then randomly ring it anytime I wanted to. But those were really the things that I found it was super successful with. And other things like turning off TVs and stuff, I found it really wasn't that good at, both because of range issues and because it takes so long to get through all the default codes for the infrared that it didn't really work. Now, the last thing I'll point out is I did actually find a GitHub repository that was really, really chock full of different infrared codes sorted by device type and manufacturer. So if you saw something and you can identify its manufacturer, you can literally just go to the device type, manufacturer, and then get a remote control just for that device that should just work immediately, which I think is better.
What firmware are you using for the?
Yes, I believe I'm using the Unleashed version. And again, this could account for some of the failures I've had. I kind of need to go back and try this again when I have the stock firmware on it, because some of the things that I'm doing do not require you to put on like unauthorized firmware, like third-party firmware. Now I will say
jailbreak them. No.
the
flipper. Yeah.
Yeah, so I am going to try this again. One thing I will say is very slick, and I have to give them congratulations for, is this flipper is not able to do cracking. So it's not able to actually crack the keys it's collecting from, for example, the door readers. But it has a companion app, so it'll send those keys over to your phone, and then you use your phone's resources to crack the keys and send them back to the flipper. That's so cool. So again, I wasn't able to actually use this workflow all the way through to copy keys, but I see that they're taking strides, and I really appreciate that. And there were a couple things this was really good at. So if you're interested in copying like doorbell signals, if you're interested in infrared stuff, and if you're interested in Tesla flipping, I guess, then this is really cool. And there's a lot of stuff you can do. But if you're looking to just be able to like immediately clone cards, adjust your expectations. This does require some extra work. And like I in spending like 3 or 4 days on this, wasn't able to get it working right away on like the normal kinds of key cards that are out there and available to find. So yeah.
Do we want to briefly discuss the actual makerspace?
Yeah, let's do it. So let's give a shout out to the real maker. We set out to visit a bunch, and I guess I had the URL for the wrong one up. But Michael, would you prefer to explain this makerspace?
So yeah, we went to Seattle Makers. This is one of multiple makerspaces in Seattle.
It's a little confusing, one might say.
We didn't get a chance to visit them all. But yeah, it was really cool seeing the different, machines they have, and just the way they do things. And I really love this, the calendar, and it's a very thorough calendar with like a bunch of stuff going on. And it was just really cool seeing the way that Makerspace operates and having different badges for when you get certified with different equipment to use it. This is the sort of makerspace where you have some membership fees, and that helps pay the rent and pay for the equipment and that sort of thing. But generally, yeah, it was just a really cool makerspace, and I'd love to see them grow and maybe do some workshops there in the future.
So since we just talked about car hacking, there were 2 really big pieces of car hacking news that I think are possibly our most shocking news stories of the week. But I haven't seen what you have yet, so I could still be wrong. So this is a vulnerability affecting Hyundai and Genesis vehicles, where you could basically remotely control the locks, engine, horn, headlights, and trunk of vehicles made after 2012. So both of these vulnerabilities, a lot of this is telematics or other things that are built into the car to give it the ability to do certain things. What shocked me is how simple the communication between the web server and the car really is. So if you're able to directly access those services, or if you're able to trick the car into communicating with you, you can figure out how these things work pretty easily. And that's what these researchers did. So they went ahead and took a look at the way that people sign up for these telematic services. And what was interesting, I believe, about this first one was by using Burp Suite, they could go in and see what the actual requests were. In this case, it was using a username, an email, a VIN, and other information to unlock the car. So they went in, they were examining JSON parameters, they modified a couple things and were able to fuzz the Hyundai user account registration and found out that it didn't require users to confirm their email address. Now that means you can register any random email address you want. And what they were able to do was examine the regex then that is looking at requests to determine if it's coming from a valid email account. So in this case, they were able to make an email account that looked like this. So if the victim's email was example@gmail.com, their example was example@gmail.com, and then these random characters at the end. And because it wasn't validated, when they sent this in the request, the server that was receiving it thought it was the same email address and went ahead and executed the command. So they were able to set up a different account with a different email address that didn't even exist and use that to send requests to this car server in order to do all sorts of bad stuff. So once they did that, they were returned information about the user, which included their VIN, and that's all they needed to construct requests to send directly to the car and tell it to do any of these things that they wanted it to do. So they were able to confirm they could unlock it, honk the horn, and then they went so far as to create a Python script that only needs the victim's email address in order to attack their vehicle and achieve basically remote control over most of the primary functions of the vehicle, as you can see executing here. So this is an incredibly neat piece of research. And here we see
whoa,
they have the ability to here's the car's VIN, and they have, wow, yeah, flash headlights, honk car, dump information, start car, stop car, unlock car, lock car. Yeah, so let's see it actually in action. That's so cool.
That's actually like really scary.
Yeah.
I wonder if you could I wonder how many safety precautions are actually in the car to say prevent you from turning the car off while it's on the interstate.
Yeah, no, probably not. So telematics are scary, right? Like, and this one seems really bad. So what if I told you that this exact same researcher found something even worse?
What could be worse than this?
Right. Okay, so let's talk about supply chain attacks. So Michael, do you remember what a supply chain attack is?
Yeah, so most companies aren't fully integrated, so they're not producing everything themselves. They rely on various suppliers for sub-manufacturing various parts or components. OEM components or original electronics manufacturer components are very common. So that's like a PCB or a circuit board that you might integrate in a more complex machine, such as a car. So, for instance, a supply chain attack would target that subcomponent that was made by another manufacturer. You often see this also in software, where there might be a library that's used by another piece of software, and that original supplier's library is compromised in some way, and then any company that relies on that library can potentially be compromised by using that malicious or now malicious library.
Yes, exactly. So a supply chain attack is going after somebody who provides an essential service for your target. And in this case, we have, let's see, Honda, Nissan, Infiniti, and Acura, who are all relying on a single entity for a bunch of critical functions.
Wow.
Now, this security researcher was able to dive into a interesting Sirius radio function where nobody really knew that Sirius XM was actually providing cloud services for all these vehicle brands. So what's cool about this is the level of access that this has to the car. It's able to do all these things that are typically, kind of bundled under, oh, you just bought this new car, here's your email account with it, and you can sign in, and then you can access the car remotely. Congratulations. Like it's like you have remote access to your car, but that means your car's connected through this cloud service. And Michael, what do you think is perhaps the second most obvious piece of identifying information on a vehicle? Besides the license plate, which is obviously the
VIN
first.
number.
Oh, well, guess what? In order to break into someone's vehicle, with somebody who has any of these surfaces, all you need for this vulnerability is their VIN, which is, again, you can look on the windshield and see their VIN. So if you wanted to take over one of these vehicles, you could use this exploit to actually remotely unlock, sit in, and then start a vehicle of one of these manufacturers. So let's talk about how it works. So the key to all of this is basically that this telematics.net server was not properly validating commands, and it was able to just use the VIN number instead of a separate identifier like a customer ID that you need to be logged in and authenticated to get in order to authenticate and then run these commands. So after a long string of research where in Burp Suite, these commands were examined and kind of messed with bit by bit to determine what they could remove and change in order to get a valid response from the server, they found that they could swap two pieces of information. Instead of needing to log in and get this customer ID, they were able to instead substitute the VIN number, and the command still worked. So provided they had the victim's VIN number, they were able to send commands to it and have it be accepted, which means an attacker could remotely unlock or do any of these things to any of these vehicles, provided they could just, well, look at the windshield and find the VIN number.
That's kind of... I wonder also if you could just brute force, because I guess VIN numbers are somewhat long, but still, like if you could just like start requesting every VIN number in existence.
You would just be setting off random cars all over the country. Like just cars all over the country would just be unlocking and stuff before you got yours.
Does it have a GPS functionality? Because then you could use it as a way to track every car made by those manufacturers.
I don't think it has a GPS functionality.
That's sad.
Yeah. But yeah, so really, really crazy research here. If you're interested in car hacking, obviously like check this stuff out. Again, this is all around telematics, and it seems like a lot of these discoveries were made by just connecting and then listening to things in Burp Suite. So Burp Suite is a great way of getting started with this sort of thing. If you're interested in learning more about that sort of stuff, we can also do some more episodes on intercepting web requests and doing this sort of fuzzing, because a lot of this is like pretty basic sorts of modifications to protocols and examining the way that if you break something or change something, the way that the server responds. And in this case, that server is controlling access to a vehicle, which could have some pretty serious consequences.
Yeah. I'm going to answer a question real quick. Mostly we take questions on the Wednesday Q&A, but this guy is asking basically about a rogue access point. Yeah. So the way that attack would take place.
Wait, what's the question?
Hey guys, I have a question. I open a fake hotspot while in the range of the access point of the legit one. Are the devices going to connect to mine or will ignore it? So mostly without any user interaction, they're going to ignore it. The way that attack would normally take place is a deauth attack would be performed on clients connected to that access point. And then a user would see your access point pop up in the list, misidentify it based on the name being the same, and then click on your access point and connect to it. And then they would be using yours. But as far as automatically, I don't think anything's going to automatically connect to it.
Yeah, the question is over what time scale. So people that arrive there, if your signal is stronger or appears to be stronger, will automatically connect to yours instead. So from the point that you turn it on, new devices connecting will connect to your access point. So I mean, you will get people joining over time, but for people who are already connected to a network, they would need to turn off their device, turn it back on, or disconnect from the network, or leave and come back in order for them to connect to your rogue network without doing deauthentication attacks. There are a couple ways around this, but in general, for example, you can like poison beacon frames and make it look like the other network is like a really bad slow network, and then devices will automatically migrate over to higher speed ones in many cases. So there's some sneaky ways you can do it, but in general, Michael's correct. Like you won't see the devices that are already there connected to an access point join yours until they disconnect and reconnect.
Yeah. Okay. So moving on here, I have some positive news, I guess, for the week. Maybe positive news. Let's Encrypt has just issued over 3 billion certificates in total, and is working on or actively securing 3.9 or 309 million sites, all for free. So what is Let's Encrypt?
Let's Encrypt is one of the, as far as I know, only like legit free ways that you can make an SSL certificate. So you have that HTTPS on your website and people stop bothering you about the fact that you're exposing their credentials every time they log in.
Yeah, exactly. It's the only one, and it is recognized by most or all of the major root certificate programs in existence. And like you said, they're issuing the X5 509 digital certificates needed for HTTPS. So yeah, they've issued a lot. I know that they catch some flack sometimes because hackers will use this to make a site look more legitimate, or otherwise it can have some security flaws, as we've seen in the past when they've had to revoke certificates. But I think this is overall a good thing to have these free certificates widely available. And it appears that they are working on a method that would automatically handle revoking certificates and renewal of certificates. So that way, once you can just automatically get a certificate and then never have to worry about that again, which I know a lot of web developers would love to see. Moving on, talking about web security, we have the concept of aged domains. So oftentimes, a attacker will create a new domain, maybe for a phishing campaign or something like that. Now, the concept of an aged domain is a domain that you create and then let sit around for a while. So that way it's not viewed as suspicious. For a lot of security programs, if you're looking at a domain and it was created yesterday, it's a little bit inherently suspicious. If it was created 2 years ago and it's been on the web and had no issues, then it's inherently less suspicious. So some very crafty threat actors have been using this process, creating domains 2 years ago, and then basically keeping them fairly legitimate over that period of time, and then after a while using them as malvertising websites in what is essentially a investment scheme, a scam. Essentially, what they'll do is inject JavaScript code in legitimate advertisements on legitimate websites that redirect to this aged malicious website. And then they're actually doing some very interesting analytics on the target to, where is it? Basically detect, if this is a target that they want, like, are they in the right part of the world? Are they speaking the right language? All those sorts of things. If they're not, then they'll just present them a legitimate looking website that's basically useless, or just a blank website. However, if you are a target that they want, they'll present this fake crypto trader website, which encourages you to invest with them, invest your Bitcoin and invest your cryptocurrency, and promises like outrageous, ludicrous sums. And that should be alarm bell number one in these cases, is if you see a website promising 1,700% return on your investment, you might want to be a little suspicious. But yeah, so definitely something to be watching out for when you click on advertisements that might take you to these malicious websites. You can't simply rely on things like the website looking right and being aged and other factors like that. There are a lot of malicious websites out there trying to get your money. Oh, and then the final thing on this piece is also they would modify their images in certain ways, such as adding this little circle to help circumvent any programs that were hunting for images. So that way, it couldn't be tracked across multiple URLs or web domains. Moving on and continuing the investment schemes thing, in a positive note, the Spanish police have dismantled an operation that made 12 million euros via investment scams. This works slightly different than the
This text is
previous.
so small. Oh my god, please.
So small?
Yeah. Sorry, I'm advocating for everybody with glasses and
Okay.
who's watching this on a mobile device. There you go.
Yeah, so essentially what they were using is a typo squatting attack. So for example, maybe Coinbase or other crypto investment platforms, you change a character, change spelling, swap some characters, and then use that domain. And then you make it look like the legitimate website. And then people who make a typo would come to this website and be encouraged to invest their cryptocurrency. And it's kind of amazing that they got 12 million euros from just people misspelling stuff like that. But apparently that's what they were able to do. But luckily, one of the people that was hacked went got a lawyer. The lawyer contacted the police, and they were able to ultimately track down these transactions. And now it was primarily targeting French nationals and impersonating French financial institutions. So it's kind of weird that the Spanish police were the ones that arrested them, but it shows you that cyber criminals don't care about national boundaries. Do you have an?
Yeah, all right. So a couple of pieces of bad news back to back. One, if you enjoy the ability to travel to an area and not be hunted by robots, then unfortunately, San Francisco may not be on your list anymore. After we covered a rather ferocious debate back and forth in the city of Oakland about whether or not they wanted the police to have the ability to kill people with robots, they decided maybe no, they didn't want that. And nearby San Francisco heard all about this and was like, wait, that sounds like a good idea. So they went ahead and approved this measure, meaning it is now an option for police to consider deploying an armed robot to actually kill someone if the circumstance they feel merits it. Now, it's not incredibly specific as to what the circumstance needs to be. All that's really said is that a couple of senior people need to sign off on it before it will be authorized. So obviously, most people don't want armed robots as like a form of policing, but it seems like the drive for public safety has outweighed in this case people not wanting Terminators walking among them. So obviously, it's not going to be like that in the early stages of this. There's only robots that can be equipped to kill someone, not that are specifically designed to kill someone. But now that this is an authorized and accepted police practice under some circumstances, you can expect that people will be making more robots that do kill people. So that's great.
That's scary dystopian future, but
and
okay.
Speaking of scary dystopian future, it turns out that Facebook has been receiving incredibly sensitive financial information on most people who use tax preparation software. So for everybody who hasn't been filing your taxes, I have a small piece of good news for you. And that's just that Facebook knows slightly less information about you. So the big thing about this is the metapixel. So do you know what the metapixel is?
Well, pixel in Facebook terms used to be a like tracking cookie, but I don't know if that's still what that's referring to.
Yes. So yes, it's basically a tracking cookie that Facebook makes publicly available in order to improve the user experience of various websites. Now, if I was a website that wanted to incorporate this, then I would put the code into my website and it would automatically transmit some information in order to identify the customer and give me, the website operator, more information and the ability to like send them ads on Facebook or like maybe not send them ads on Facebook if they're already a customer or things like that. So most of the businesses that are involved in this sort of thing will just get the stock version and just put it up. But some of them will actually set up custom parameters that it's sending in order to get more information. And sometimes it's the people who are installing it, and sometimes it's the people who are on the other side on Meta that are actually doing these modifications to the installations. So during an investigation, it was found that lots of information from a variety of different websites was being sent directly to not just Meta, but also Google. Now, the things that were being sent to Google were nowhere near as serious as what was being sent to Meta. But it was just a really, really blatant display of how things like your refund amount, your total amount of income, the amount of student debt you have, all these things were being tied together with identifiers like your name, email address, and other things that were being scraped and sent directly to Meta in a hashed form, but agreeably in a way that is very, very easy to reverse engineer and still allows them to link that data across social profiles. So basically what this was doing was funneling very, very sensitive information through this metapixel back to Facebook and allowing them to build an incredibly detailed profile of you based on information like, again, how much money you made, how much your tax return was, and other things about including like dependents. Now, obviously, that's pretty sketchy if your dependents information is also being sent to Facebook so that they can kind of non-consensually link you to other people in your family. So a lot of people were very upset about this. Now, The Verge reached out to a lot of these tax agencies, and most of them have modified the way that this information has been transmitted. So if you look towards the bottom of this, some people were also shocked. When they were contacted and asked about this, they said that they had no idea that anything was being transmitted and that they were shocked that that sort of thing was happening and that they really did not know that that was happening. So some people seemed like very shocked. Some people said that they were only transmitting information like email addresses and usernames and stuff that was not so sensitive, and thus they were perfectly fine with using it. So this really was kind of a revelation that these meta pixels can be embedded in so many different websites across the internet and start gathering information about you from all those different sources. This is a huge data mining operation that is widespread across tons of websites and is working to build a profile about you that is then accessible to researchers. And what's notable that the story also touched on is that Facebook has no idea where this data is going itself in many cases. Their system is so complicated and has so many places that data is stored. Many engineers believe that there's no real way to audit the way that this data is being used once it does enter into the system. So if you want a depressing read into how your tax information was probably shared with Facebook, check out this Verge article, because it is truly depressing and shocking what has been done and how many different tax preparation websites were affected here.
Yeah, and I actually have something adjacent to that is very concerning, because Meta just got fined $275 million for leaking this data. So Meta got fined $275 million by the Irish Data Protection Commission. So this is linked to GDPR, if you're familiar with that, which is basically the European data protection laws in place. And this all came about because in April 14th, 2021, last year, the data belonging to 533 million Facebook users was published on a hacker forum. And so the reason Meta is getting this fine is essentially the government, the Irish government, deemed that Meta was not doing enough to protect users' data from these scraping robots. And these robots were scraping information such as mobile numbers, IDs, names, genders, location, relationship statuses, occupations, dates of birth, email addresses, etc. It's not clear that any of that pixel data Cody was talking about would have been included in that. This seems more of the generic Facebook profile information, but it is possible that those two data sets could have been linked in some way. But yeah, so definitely a bad day to be Meta. And, of course, Meta is not the only one that faces data scraping. So if you're not familiar with what data scraping is, that's essentially just a program or a robot that'll go through a website looking for metadata, such as user account information, etc., and compiling that in a fashion so that it can be reviewed and analyzed by a programmer.
Some people are also pointing out in the comments, the police have already blown up a guy by strapping a bomb to a bomb diffusing robot and just rolling up to him. So yes, people who are pointing out in the comments, this is actually something that's already been done. So yeah, pretty spooky.
Yep. Moving on. I guess not last week, since we didn't do the stream because of Thanksgiving, but the week before we talked about ThinkBooks and how they had a secure boot vulnerability. Well, now Acer has joined the club because they didn't want Lenovo to be all lonely. So the Acer laptops have a similar vulnerability where a sufficiently privileged user can disable secure boot fairly easily by basically just writing to the boot order secure boot disable RAM location here and turning off secure boot. And then that would allow a hacker to easily go in and modify anything in the BIOS that would be preventing the attack that they want to perform. Now, luckily, there is an update available for your BIOS, and then a Windows update should be coming probably in the next week or two to help patch this. But so yeah, if you have an Acer laptop, make sure to update your BIOS as soon as possible.
All right, so when people ask about device security and they ask me like what kinds of devices I like hacking the best or I think are the most critical, I often say routers. Now, routers are a very common target because there's so many things you can do with them. And this next story kind of feeds into that because a service called Blackproxies is becoming increasingly popular for doing all sorts of, let's say, interesting things on the internet that you might otherwise have done with Tor. Now, the reason that you wouldn't use Tor is because Tor is detected very, very easily and blocked by a large number of services. But Blackproxy allows you to use residential IP addresses, which means people's home computers or their home routers to send these requests and basically mask your identity by making it look like the request came from them. Now, a lot of these are devices that are infected or otherwise have been dragged into this kind of like botnet almost of proxies that allows people to pay for access. And the rates are pretty steep, actually. The marketing here says that you're not supposed to do illegal things and that, illegal things are bad. But frankly, this is very, very commonly used for a variety of different attacks that require you to not be using a Tor server, but you definitely don't want linked back to you, like carding, denial of service attacks, or maybe sending ransom notices or something like that. So you can access the service for $14 a day, $39 a week, or $89 per month. Wait, that's not even that steep. So it seems as though a lot of people are using this as an alternative to things that would otherwise trigger alarms, like a VPN that might be detected, and instead trying to lie low and make it look like it's a home user connecting from a very recognizable IP address that's doing this thing. So people doing credit card fraud, people doing all sorts of malicious activities have gravitated towards these type of services and their ability to take cryptocurrency as a way to be able to operate in kind of an undetected way, where many of the defenses people have created against sketchy or blacklisted IP addresses are able to be evaded by just using residential ones that connect back to regular users. So if you're wondering what someone could do with your router if they were able to get access to it, then this is a great example of how they could actually make a lot of money.
Yeah, and I actually have a related story here. And this is talking about how, so for instance, if you tried to create an account recently, you may have been requested to do a sort of two-factor code where they send you a number to your phone to verify that you have a phone, and like they're trying to verify that you're a real person and not just a robot, and kind of increase those boundaries. Now, what we have here is a fake Android app that appears to be just like a generic SMS messaging app, and it got over 100,000 downloads, but it doesn't even do anything. Essentially, when you download it, it'll send multiple of those SMS verification codes to your phone from various platforms such as Microsoft, Google, Instagram, Telegram, and Facebook. And then as the app on your phone is initializing, it's actually receiving all those text codes and then sending it back to a server to use your phone as a sort of proxy and then selling that as a service to hackers or anyone who wants a quote unquote virtual number online and needs one of these one-time passcodes. So it's kind of a sneaky way to like monetize people's cell phones and their cell phone numbers. But it only happened the one time. It did get about 100,000 downloads, and it's already been taken off the Google Play Store. But this isn't the only kind of app that's done this sort of thing. So we'll probably see more of these sorts of attacks going forward. You got a story?
Yeah. Okay. You seem to be on a roll.
Yeah.
So police have arrested 55 members of the Black Panther SIM swapping group. This is something that I thought was originally based in the United States, but it turns out it was based in Barcelona. Very exotic. So the gang was operating 4 special activity cells dedicating to social engineering, phishing, which is voice phishing, which I just call good old-fashioned tricking people, phishing, and carding, and had a super organized structure. And they were also buying information off the darknet with cryptocurrency in order to conduct a lot of these scams. So this is a pretty typical structure now, because these are relatively low risk, high reward activities that street gangs can get into that eventually earn them a lot of money. And it seems as though when they were taken down, they were found in the presence of, 45 SIM cards, 11 mobile phones, 4 laptops, a hardware cryptocurrency wallet, and plenty of documentation related to the crimes. So again, this seems like a relatively low level gang with a lot of members who was focused on a couple of very, very high profit activities. And you'll see a lot of these people also acting as access brokers, where they'll go in, get initial access, and then turn around and sell that access on the darknet to people who really want to get into those organizations, have plenty of money, but maybe haven't figured out how to get into those organizations yet themselves. So I also have a story about a Colombian ransomware attack. So in this case, it's affecting a giant healthcare network that includes a number of different hospitals, 12 hospitals, 371 medical centers in Latin America, Spain, and the United States. Oh, and also Asia. So they have 24,000 employees, 10,000 medical doctors, and provide healthcare to over 6 million patients. And their IT services have been knocked out by a ransomware attack. Now, a member of this organization was able to send a screenshot of what this looks like, and it looks like it's got a little Mario on it, apparently based on modifications to this ransomware that it was used to target Italian facilities. And it says that they should get on this Telegram channel and send a bunch of cryptocurrency. So we don't often see a lot of healthcare organizations that are hit by ransomware gangs because it tends to provoke a federal response, especially if it affects the care of patients. And if people start dying, then it tends to motivate people to really go after these ransomware organizations. So we'll see exactly what the effects of this rather bold attack against a healthcare organization will be.
Yep. Okay, so are you familiar with TikTok?
No, I've never heard of it.
Never heard of TikTok. So you've never heard of the invisible body challenge on TikTok?
No.
Okay. So apparently the kids these days, they have the invisible body challenge. So TikTok, a like quick social video platform.
You don't need to tell anyone what TikTok is, just go.
Yeah. Anyway, so the invisible body challenge is essentially they have a filter on TikTok which like makes your body invisible and just like blurs it into the background. Well, hackers are taking advantage of this, and some people with some nasty ideas to sell the idea that they have a program which will remove the invisible body filter. Now, part of the invisible challenge is that you're supposed to like dance around with your clothes off, fully nude, and have your body invisible for TikTok. So these hackers are preying on people who want to remove this filter for some reason, and they've made TikTok videos promoting that they have the software that removes the filter, and that all you got to do is join their Discord and go to a GitHub page and download this program, and you can remove all of those filters. Well, unfortunately for the people who try that, it in fact just downloads a program that steals their password, their Discord accounts, and cryptocurrency wallets. So it is kind of elaborate like pipeline that these hackers have these targets go through, where they find the TikTok video, they watch it, and apparently these videos got over 1 million views combined between the two videos. Then they would join a Discord, and a bot on the Discord would link them to a GitHub website, and then the GitHub was actually trending for a while with 103 stars and 18 forks. I don't know if that was like people actually starring it and just not like running it, or if it was somehow faked by the hackers, which I would lean towards the latter. But once you download this repository, there would be a Python package that would run and steal all of your passwords and cryptocurrencies and stuff. So yeah, don't do that.
All right, it looks like we are out of time for this week's news segment. I want to thank everybody in the chat who's been hanging out with us today, and also make sure to stay tuned for our next Q&A, which is going to be next Wednesday. And per always, a big thank you to Veronas for letting us do this live stream every week. We'll see you next time. Bye.